Welcome to What One Thing, a Smart Meetings podcast where we ask successful people what made all the difference in their life and career so you can learn from their journeys and spark your own growth. Hi, I'm your host, Devin Montgomery Pasha, and I am beyond delighted to introduce our guest today. So our guest today is one of the most accomplished event producers in the United States and a true pioneer of our industry. Fred Stein is the founder of the Creative Group, a special events production company that has produced almost 3,000 major events in the world. His work includes Philadelphia's 300th anniversary, the bicentennial of the United States Constitution, the visit of Pope Francis to the United States, and my favorite, not one, but two Philadelphia Eagles Super Bowl parades in the great city of Philadelphia, in addition to countless university milestones, groundbreaking ceremonies, galas at some of the nation's most respected institutions. Fred is born and raised in Philadelphia and began his career as a journalist before serving in city government and the U.S. Congress, and eventually launching a company dedicated to transforming history, purpose, and community into unforgettable shared experiences. In addition, he's also helped establish event programs at both Temple and Drexel universities to help shape the next generation of professionals in our field. Fred, I am beyond delighted to welcome you to What One Thing.
Thank you so much for having me be a part of this.
Fred, it's been delightful to both follow your career, to learn from you, but also to see the vast array of events that you've brought together. Bringing that together with your career as a journalist, how do you uncover the deeper story before putting that event together? Or how does that deeper story and your journalistic background become how you approach events?
When I went into journalism, my aim was to tell stories that would intrigue people, get them excited, or explore how to correct failings throughout the city. And in doing that, research and talking to and interviewing was a critical part. Much the same as now, when I still produce events, I talk to people to try to exact what makes them excited or thoughtful or caring. And that includes interviews live, video, as well as when I produce an event, having them or their friends, relatives, or influencers be a vital part of the event.
That interviews and people connection are still at the foundation of every event that you produce. And, they run quite the gamut, city celebrations, civic celebrations, historic celebrations, in addition to, victory parades or capital campaigns. But that personal touch in that interview is always at the foundation. Would you say that there is a common thread that connects all of these seemingly different events from your perspective?
Yes. And when I look at them, it's always the ability to be creative in my approach, where I've done events for 25, 30 years in a row, same exact event. However, they need to be different. And that's from a standpoint of creative. So as an example, I did a annual awards ceremony and gala for an institution in Philadelphia called Jefferson Health. It's in its 23rd year. About 8 or 9 years into it, they awarded recognition to a medical dignitary as well as a business person. I went to the office of the business person to collect some photographs, get a feeling of his office, and I noticed he had pigs, P-I-G-S, pigs everywhere. I asked his assistant, why pigs? And she explained to me that was one of his standpoints, whatever he had in way of pigs. So when the time came for the 1,000 people to sit down for their ceremony and dinner, you heard a pig squealing, and from the back of the room came flying a stuffed pig. It landed on the stage. It came down, and from the back of the stage came a pot-bellied pig that I had borrowed from the Philadelphia Zoo. From that standpoint, that entire event was totally different than the first 9 or 10. I haven't used a pig since, but you're always on the lookout something different, whether serious or as jovial as that.
Wow. I love the joyousness, but I also realize that you just said, for every institution that you've worked with that said, this is how we've always done it and we'll change it when pigs fly. I think now Fred has given us all permission because they've actually flown now at your events.
Exactly. When the Pope Francis came to visit and he arrived in Philadelphia by plane, I had a red carpet. He walked down the carpet. Joe Biden was there among other people, and he got into his car, which was a very small Fiat, not a big limo. I had a band, a choir from a local parochial high school playing. He drove past the band, and all of a sudden, the car stopped. He was supposed to continue on. Car stopped. I walked over with all the police to find out what the issue was. He gets out of the car, walks over to the band, and sitting in a wheelchair is a young child, and he goes over and kisses him. Just so happens the child had a mental disorder, and you can see it. He did that. He then walked away, got in his car, and everyone was just beside themselves. Did he notice this young child? It ended up the press, and there were over 100 press there. They wanted to know who the kid was. He happened to be the son of the leader of the band. And with that, social media began. There was enough money raised to pay off the kids' medical issues for the rest of his life, as well as paying for their house and upkeep and all of his medical issues. But it's one of the most amazing things. The kid was not put there for the Pope to notice.
No.
And hard to believe that he even saw him, but that's how it is. And sometimes events happen when things are not planned.
I think that's sometimes the best part, right? It's the moments that we slow down for, right? Those beautiful, unexpected moments that you can't plan for, but can cherish when you've designed it in a way that there's space for delight and for awe and for serendipity. I think I remember that because the photo of him with that young boy, I think ended up as one of the premier photos of his connecting with the community.
Viral was not the word. It was just beyond that.
Beyond. So, Fred, speaking of people and connection, so many of your events, even looking at, we're thinking that the 250, anniversaries are coming up across the country, and knowing how integral you were towards that Welcome America and some of those first centennial, bicentennials, sesquicentennials, to be able to recognize that so many, city, I know you've gone to a lot of cities and done their centennials, sesquicentennials. So when you think about the people that you're connecting with, similar to your gentleman with the pig, what do you believe people are really seeking when they come together to celebrate those larger than themselves moments that you're a part of designing for them?
They want to experience a sense of participation, that whatever their life is, that their life is a part of what we are commemorating. And whether or not they feel a sense of pride, a sense of, I hate to say it, anger, or a sense of participation, that's what we want to include. And many times there's a performance element to it. When the Pope comes to visit, we don't need an international performer. We need entertainment or music or spoken word poetry with intent and with reaction from the audience. Because that's who you're doing it for, not really the person, but the audience.
Yeah. I know when you did the papal visit, there was so much thought and design for who really is coming to Philadelphia for this. And I remember conversations that the hotels wanted to charge hundreds and hundreds of dollars more, like this was an attraction. But I remember that you spoke to them and said, there are not people coming who spend $600 a night for a hotel. You're designing for the religious communities who are coming to celebrate, to be reverent, to have opportunities. And, I would love you to speak to, these events that bring communities together and help them remember. What does that look like to you when you're thinking of those communities who are specifically coming or look different or want to see that sense of participation?
One example I can give you is an award that I started after the Constitution 200. It's called the Liberty Medal Award. Again, in 1988, went to Lech Walesa, the head of Poland at the time, various national, international recipients. But each year we look at what that person or who the person represents. In 1993, it went to the president of South Africa, F.W. de Klerk, and his follower, Nelson Mandela. They both came. The point was not just for Americans to appreciate, but all those around the world who understood what Mandela represented. And his speaking both at Independence Hall and earlier at a luncheon, at a dinner at the brand new convention center with 3,000 people. We heard him talk and reflected in the President de Klerk's comments. Bill Clinton was also there. People around the world, not just in Philadelphia, understood what Mandela stood for and what he sought in that year and the years to come.
I didn't know that you started the Legacy Award. I know it's a beautiful international award that really represents some of the highest, I think, accolades for people who do for people in the country and around the world.
You have celebrations. The question is, what do they hold forth for the future? Any legacy? We determined with that one that we weren't just doing building or capital campaign or whatever, but the legacy was the award. And what we didn't realize at the time, there was also the building of the National Constitution Center that became another legacy.
So speaking of legacy, Fred, that's such a good segue into the legacy of what happens after someone has had these experiences of participation, of community, of emotional connection. When you start designing the event from inception, and as you said before, it doesn't matter if it's happened one time or 100 times, you kind of start afresh. When you're in that initial phase, what do you hope people carry with them? What do you hope that is that moment that resonates the most with them when they've left the event, the legacy that it leaves for them personally?
I think what it means is that they continue and they follow through on their hopes and desires and try to make it happen.
I love that answer. I love that you're thinking about not just that they enjoyed themselves or gave to the capital campaign, but that they took that deeper meaning, that deeper intention with them. Do you have like a good example? Like what would be your favorite version of that you saw?
So many possibilities.
3,000 possibilities later.
Yeah. I would hate to focus in on just one, but when I looked at an example, tricentennial of Mobile, Alabama, and I had no idea when I was asked to go down and talk to them about this event. They had no idea what they wanted to do. So I flew down figuring it was a one-time thing, give them advice. And when I learned about the accomplishments of Mobile as a diverse city, that not just Southern white folks, but Blacks, various sections of that city, I thought it'd be great to start working on different events. I ended up being hired to plan it for 6 years.
Wow.
And realized that I love the city. And by the way, I was offered the job of the head of the Convention and Visitors Bureau. They knew I fell in love with this unbelievable home on the main street and wanted to buy it for me. I came close, but no thank you. I love Philadelphia no matter what.
Well, we'll take it. You know, as a daughter of our great city of Philadelphia, your love for the city is evident in how you help us celebrate as a diverse community, as a historic community. But I love that we were asking about, you know, what carries with them. And the example you shared is more how it impacted you and how you got to carry that through. And it's wonderful to remember that those of us who participate in the community are members of it as well. And we can be just as impacted as our clients and customers.
The aim. Anyone planning an event, whether it's 20 people or 200,000 or 2 million, you have to look at each person's reaction and feedback. And that's important.
Yeah. So, Fred, you know, after 30 years and a career that spans thousands of events celebrating historic moments, you know, whether it's football parades or the U.S. Constitution, you know, centennials for some of the country's, you know, best cities, largest cities, looking at, you know, even historical educational institutions, you know, you have to think what, after all these years, what keeps you curious and inspired to look at all of these through different lenses every year? What does that for you and keeps you curious?
A sense of not just accomplishment, but achievement on behalf of my clients. I'm not doing personal events as much as events where the impact is felt region-wide, worldwide, nationwide. And that's important. So, and I love what I do, so I want to continue doing it. not to retire.
Okay. Well, now we know Fred said it here first. We're going to have to kick him out. He's not going to leave hanging on to the door frame, but still curious, after your storied career and some events that really have been on the global stage. I know the papal visit was huge for the country since he hadn't visited.
Yeah.
Now that we have the first American Pope, maybe you'll get to do a second round. So, Fred, as we wrap up, but I know I could keep you here all day asking about, leadership and what happens in the States when millions and millions are watching, let alone millions are participating. You have to ask, and it's our favorite question, what do you think is the one thing that made all the difference in your life and career?
I would say a sense of accomplishment internally for me. Last night, I did the 10th anniversary awards gala for the Philadelphia Police Foundation. I've been working pro bono for a decade. I just so happened I sat there, listened, and had a Wawa got an award. The family of a police officer who was killed got one, but for the first time, and I felt a sense of internal accomplishment. Yet, the end, the chairwoman stood up, wanted to present an award. She held up a microphone on a medal and said, "This is going to our Voice of God." Now, VOG, Voice of God, is an off-stage announcement with every event I do. I'm usually the one who does it. They don't see me, they don't know me, but I do it. And I got this award, and people in the audience, 400 or 500 people, were so excited. And yet, that's not the aim of my events. The aim is to feel a sense of accomplishment. And by the way, they raised $950,000 for the pool. And that's the sense of accomplishment, not me or not my voice. And that's it. And I'll continue to do so.
Well, Fred, thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing your warmth and your wisdom and reminding us that the sense of accomplishment is what resonates with our clients and our attendees and our stakeholders. And that's what warms us up at night and is what most resonant for us. Thank you for sharing your remarkable experience and perspective on how events can help our communities celebrate their history, to strengthen their identity, and to create those memories that will last for generations. The first Philadelphia Super Bowl parade in 50 years and 3 and 4 generations of families coming out to celebrate hope and celebrate success. It's really remarkable, papal visits and 300th anniversaries and letting people remember and resonate with their pride and being part of the community. So Fred, thank you so much for taking time to share all of that wisdom.
For having me.
And to our listeners, thank you so much for joining What One Thing, a Smart Meetings podcast. Every story sparks inspiration for your own journey. But until next time, keep creating, keep connecting, and keep sparking change.
Thank you.
Smart Meetings What One Thing was produced by Bright Business Media. Visit smartmeetings.com to subscribe to your daily dose of inspiration.